Hello and welcome back to the channel. In today's video we're looking at a 2008 Vauxhall Corsa D EcoFlex. This is the 1.3 CDTI DTJ model. This car has had an issue with two injectors and sometimes three injectors failing, and we also have a fuel blockage because the fuel filter is faulty, and we also have a fuel leak-off valve issue. We'll take a start looking at the fuel filter and how we're going to be able to remove it. In order to remove the fuel filter, we must first remove the bracket which is securing it to the car using the 10mm which you can see here. We must also remove the fuel lines which are the feed in and out of the fuel filter, and we can gain access to this in a few different ways. One being removing the scuttle panel which you see here. And to do this, we remove the 13mm nut, which is behind this little blank here, and then remove the wiper blades. We must then remove the seal, and we can also gain access to the fuel filter by removing this, which is your air filter. There are a few Torx bolts and some brackets here which we need to undo to remove the lines, and then we'll be able to actually just pull this out of its rubber grommets and remove the filter forwards. Because we're actually doing more than just the fuel filter today, we will take the option of removing the wiper blades and the scuttle panel, because we also need to gain access to the ECU, and as well we're going to repair this fuel leak-off line here, which is broken. The fuel leak-off line is actually a complete replacement unit with all four injectors, and I'll explain how to do that a little later. For now, let's get back to replacing the fuel filter. The first thing we are going to do is gently pry up these caps which are sitting over the 13mm nuts using a small screwdriver. And we're going to put that somewhere safe, and we can see a 13mm nut here. So we'll put the spanner on and we'll just undo this. And it would help, of course, if I put it on the right way. So we'll turn that over. And once we've actually released the pressure on there, and there may be quite a bit of pressure, you should be able to actually undo the nut using your fingertips. Once the nut is removed, I'll put that somewhere safe also. And then we're going to move across to the second side and do the same on that one. No matter the reason for removing the wiper blades, we should always take note of which one goes on which side, because your wiper blades will be different sizes on the majority of cars in the market. So we see the shorter one is on the right here, the passenger side, and the longer one is on the left. With the bonnet closed, we can gain access to the right-hand side as we look at it, the passenger side wiper arm. And what we need to do is release the pressure on the arm to get it up. Now, to do this with the bonnet down, we're just going to actually raise up the arm, as you see here, and using two hands, one on the right and then one actually where the thread is here, we're going to just put a little bit of left and right gentle pressure on that, and hopefully that will release the wiper arm. Here we see the wiper arm has been removed, and now we're going to move across to the driver's side, the left-hand side as we look at it, and we can do this better with the bonnet open. So again, we've rotated it upwards, and we're just going to put a little bit of left and right pressure, wobbling it as we do, and that should release the wiper arm. And once removing both of the wiper arms, we can move on to removing the scuttle panel. The first thing I like to do is to remove the weather seal. This will just peel up from left or right, and if you turn it over, you'll see there is actually a channel, which you can see here, and that just sits onto the upward part here. So let's just remove the weather seal to put that somewhere safe. Now, to remove the scuttle itself, we should be able to just give it a gentle lift and just tug it backwards. But many times these are actually very tight against the weather seal here onto the windscreen. Now, we must take great care when doing this, because if we lift it and pull it too harshly, there is a good chance you will actually crack your windscreen. And that's something we must try and avoid. So let's avoid it and try doing it this way. What I've done is just begun to raise it at one edge, and I've got a screwdriver, a small screwdriver underneath there. And once I got it slightly raised at one edge, just place the screwdriver in, lifting up and away from the glass so you're not putting pressure on it. Just slowly move your way across the scuttle panel, and it will actually release its bite against the seal. As you can see here, just work your way across, Once you've done that, the scuttle panel will be able to be removed very easily from the screen. And once you've gone all the way along, as we can see we have done here, we can go back to the underside of the bonnet, place your hand underneath the scuttle panel and raise it above the two threads for the wiper arms on both sides. And once you've raised it above there, you can simply bring it backwards and it is released away from the screen. Now, we do have two water jets also as part of the scuttle panel, which you can see here and here. So we need to just rotate it upwards and we need to release this pipe away from its union. This pipe is your water feed to your water jets. To remove it, we can use either a pick or a small screwdriver in between the rubber hose and the plastic union, taking care, of course, not to actually pierce the rubber hose. Here is a pick, and I'm going to place it between the rubber hose, pushing down towards the plastic union where the hose is connected and stuck. And we're just going to rotate that around the pipe, as we see here, putting a little bit of air and breaking the seal. Once we've done that, we can remove the pick, and with a little twist left and right and a good pull, which I can't quite do with one hand, we release the pipe, as you see here. Once you've released the pipe, you'll be able to then bring the scuttle panel away from the car and place it somewhere safe. For us, we're just going to place it here on the ground, and it's back to the engine bay. And as we look under the scuttle panel here, we can see that we have lots of debris. We have leaves, we have cobwebs and other such debris all the way across from left to right. Doesn't matter where you wash your car, by hand yourself, or if you go to an automated car wash, this area is never cleaned thoroughly. This is your engine ECU, and we can see it's been sitting in a lot of this mess, and this is where the water ingress happens, because water comes in from the top, it sits in and amongst all of this debris, and ultimately your ECU is just sitting in that. There is also a water channel underneath which we need to make sure is clean. So let's go ahead and remove this under scuttle panel, and we do this by removing the bolts, which you can see here. There's about 7 or 8 of those all the way across, and these bolts are an 8mm, and we need to remove all of these in order to remove this lower scuttle panel. Now, this piece would ordinarily be connected to the lower scuttle panel, as you see here, but it's already broken. So we're just going to rotate this up out of the way on this car, and we don't need to pay any more attention to it. But on your car, you will need to actually pull that up and disconnect it from your lower scuttle panel. Okay, so let's go ahead and undo these bolts and get this panel removed. Having removed all of the bolts, and there are a number of them across here, and I'll try and show you them where they are with the camera as we work our way across the lower scuttle panel. Just working our way across here. There's another bolt down there. We can just lift this lower scuttle panel up, and ordinarily we're going to want to move this from the car. Now, this is your water pipe feed, which is for your water jets, which we disconnected from the T-union earlier. Now, this car has some silicone here, which is holding it in against the lower scuttle panel. Again, this was probably to do with some form of attempt to stop water ingress. So it prevents me from actually taking this off easily. So I'm just going to move it over to the right so I can get to the ECU and remove these connectors. As you can see, the 4 bolts holding the ECU in at the back here are almost invisible. So we'll come back to removing the ECU a little later. Let's go back now to removing the fuel filter, and we're going to do this by removing the 10mm, which we now have very good access to, and we're going to then attempt to remove the 2 fuel pipes, one being the feed in and one the feed out. In order to remove each of these fuel lines, we actually need to squeeze in a tab on both sides of each fuel line. Now, sometimes these fuel lines are colour-coded with different coloured tabs, but on this car they are both blue. And these are the tabs I'm pointing to here. And there's one on each side of the connection onto the fuel filter. You can do this using a screwdriver on each side if you have an extra person maybe to help you. It's a little bit awkward on your own. But there is also a proper tool you can actually purchase for squeezing in these tabs, which makes the job a whole lot easier. and I do highly recommend you get one of those tools. Here is that tool, and also with this tool we have the wiper arm removal tool. So this is what we would use if we can't remove the wiper arms, and you would place it underneath the arm, and then you would screw it down onto the top of the thread, as you can see with that, just turning it in, and that would put pressure onto the thread and pressure upwards to remove the wiper arm. So if you do have issues, try and purchase one of these little tools. They are quite handy. And this is the tool we're going to be using for the fuel lines, and we just place it on either side and then put gentle pressure against the two tabs, and then we'll be able to just pull backwards and remove the fuel line. So I've just pulled it forward slightly here so I can place the tool against the tabs, and just a gentle pressure there, and then pull backwards, and the line will remove without any issues at all. Okay, so here we have the tool against the two tabs, and all we do is squeeze it and pull the fuel line backwards, as you see here. And these fuel lines are quite brittle, so do be very, very careful with that. And the blue tab will stay on the filter for now, but we will be moving those across to the new filter a little bit later. Let's go ahead now and look at the second fuel line. And again, we just need to pull the fuel line slightly forward to gain access to the tabs, and then squeeze and push it backwards. Let's go ahead and do that now. And here we have both fuel lines removed. So again, being very careful not to damage these fuel lines, we'll just move them slightly to the side. And it's now time just to undo the 10mm and remove the electrical connector. And while we undo the 10mm bolt here, I'd just like to take a moment to thank you for watching the video and ask you to go and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Subscription to any channel is completely free, it costs you nothing, but what it does, it allows people like myself to be able to develop their channel, to be able to bring you more content like this and other content that you may wish to ask for in the comments down below. So please do go ahead and subscribe to the channel. And of course, if you are enjoying this video, whilst you're there, go and hit that thumbs up button and hit the bell icon in the corner of the video. And that will remind you next time we actually do post a video, whether it's the follow-up video to this one today, or whether it's a video on any other vehicles that you may be interested in seeing. Now back to the video. So we've removed the fuel filter, and here we have the bracket which was holding it on. And as you can see, the bracket just goes into the little slot just down here. And just show you how that goes in. And that will go across then with your 10mm bolt to actually hold and secure the main fuel filter. Now back to the fuel filter itself and the electrical connector. There is an electrical connector on the bottom of this fuel filter, but there may not be on yours, and there may just be a blanking tap that you can undo to actually drain the filter. To remove this electrical connector, we just lift up on the tab and gently pull backwards on the electrical connector to release it, as you see in the picture here. Now let's take a look at the fuel filter itself as we remove it away from the car. We are going to need to remove the fuel pressure sender from the bottom, which is just screwed in with a seal. And we're going to need to remove these two blue tabs from the inlet and outlet pipe of the fuel filter itself. The fuel sender will screw anti-clockwise to remove it, and of course remembering to replace the seal with the new one that comes with the filter. And to remove these blue tabs, what I like to do is use a small flat bladed screwdriver similar to the one we used earlier, and gently prise each side away where the tab is so that it goes over the ring on the fuel filter line itself. And as you do that gently, you should be able to remove each tab without breaking it. If you do break these tabs, they are available from your local Vauxhall dealer. Actually, before we go ahead and swap those over, let's just show you the new filter and the difference between the two. We can see we have a red and a black cap over here to designate the high and low pressure, the feed in and feed out to the filter. And on the new filter, we can see the threaded insert there as well. And this bit here is just to actually bleed the system if you have air in it at the top. When we fill it and we prime it later, we can just undo this with a normal right hand thread, and that will release the pressure. Now, when taking this off the bottom, remembering it's full of fuel. It's a good idea to do this over a vessel so it will catch the diesel as it falls out. Always remember, when doing jobs like this, we want to be environmentally friendly. A very interesting point worth noting: whilst these fuel filters are both for this particular 1.3 CDTI Vauxhall Corsa, they do fit other vehicles as well. And on the old filter, which is this one, we see the small pipe is on the left and the big pipe is on the right. On the new filter, which we fitted the new clips to, well, the original clips from here, we have the large pipe on the left and the small one on the right. So that's a difference in the way that these have been constructed. It will have to do with the way it's constructed internally, but it will make no difference to the operation of the filter. So we can still use this filter, so don't be put off by that. But of course, when fitting the pipes back to the filter itself, these pipes here, we need to make sure we cross them over now so we get the correct pipe on, otherwise it won't fit and it would indeed leak. Having removed the fuel from the filter already, we're now going to go ahead and unscrew the connector, and it will take very little effort to unscrew this connector. We just literally rotate it to the left. You keep doing that, excuse me, until it releases from the filter itself. Now, although I'm doing this over a drain, we should make note for any of the environmental people out there, there is no diesel left in this filter. Okay, and this is your sender and your pressure sensor, which will be feeding info back to the ECU itself. Okay, let's go fit this to the new filter. And it was round about this point that we realised we'd made a terrible mistake. We've just told you that the fuel filters are interchangeable and it's fine that the pipes are on the opposite side at the top. In actual fact, that was a clue to us, because this actual fuel pressure sender will not screw in here because the thread on the filter is far bigger than the thread on the sender. So this fuel filter is not suitable. This is a Delphi, and you'll see the part number, I think, coming up shortly. But yes, it's not actually going to be suitable for our car. So we're going to have to go out and get a new fuel filter, which is. And in the meantime, I think we can go ahead and have a look at some other parts like the ECU on the car. And taking a look now at the ECU, we have 4 nuts which we need to undo, one on each corner, and they are 8mm nuts. We have the ratchet and the socket on there now. We can see the back two but not the front two because of the debris. And I was just checking there at the back of the ECU, but there's nothing at the back there securing it down. We need also to remove these 2 actual plugs which go onto the ECU at the front, and I'll show you how later. Top tip: when taking any nuts and bolts out, always refit them back into the area they go into, and you'll make sure that you'll never have a problem trying to find the correct nut or bolt further down the line. And now moving back over towards the ECU, we'll begin to undo the first of the 8mm nuts. There's one on each corner to undo, and here we see all of those nuts removed. 1, 2 here on the right, and 3, 4 on the left. In order to remove the 2 electrical connectors, we need to just gently prise up this part here over this little tab that you can see me pointing to. And we need to do that on both connectors. And we will be removing the connector on the right first, and we need to push it all the way forward, and then we can very easily remove the connector. You should take no pressure to remove these, so if you are finding this pressure, you need to just pull this little lever further forward in order to remove the actual connector. So now we've removed that first plug, we can actually zoom in with the camera and take a closer look at the pins. And what we're looking for is any obvious signs of water ingress and corrosion along any of these pins. And we can also move across to the connector, and we can scan across the main connector, and we can also look across here to see if we can see any obvious signs of water ingress. And so far so good. The pins here look to be okay. And repeat this process for the second connector. Now, to remove the ECU itself from the car, we need to actually lift up this harness, which is actually connected through the main plastic surround which goes around the ECU, and the ECU is housed in. So we need to get this harness and lift it up and then push it to the right as far as we can. This rear harness was zip tied, so that needs cutting away, And this particular zip tie is on the stud, and we can just pull it firmly away from the car. Once we have done this, we can then just rotate the ECU away from the car, and then we can actually remove the ECU from the housing. So with the unit removed on the DTJ engine, we can see that the part number for this is an MJD603, and then all those numbers afterwards. It's a 603S3 if you look at the bottom. You can also see that it sits in this plastic cradle. Now to remove it from the cradle, it's held with a clip at the back here. We just push gently down on that clip, and then we can actually push from the front the ECU, and it will release from the plastic bracket. Now, a bit difficult to do it with one hand, so I'll go ahead and do that with two hands, and then we'll see the unit away from the plastic house. And here is the plastic housing removed from the ECU itself. Okay, so having removed the ECU from the housing, I just want to show you, if I can get a good picture out of the light, just how much crud and water and rubbish has actually got in behind this plastic housing. And it's all of this water, despite this seal here, see the corrosion on the plastic, it's very wet. It's all of this which actually gets inside of the ECU, just due to the poor location of the unit on the car. We'll see if we can do something about giving it some extra protection when we reinstall it once it's been repaired. But again, you can see the water corrosion all over the casing here, and there's no doubt in my mind that we have a water ingress problem on this unit. So we'll head off to Blue Hawk Electronics in Nottingham. Dennis Gormley, the proprietor of the business, will be splitting the unit open and having a look, see if he can repair this particular unit. If not, he will virginise a unit for me, and we'll be reprogramming the unit on the car. Okay, so we've addressed the ECU, getting it out. We've looked at the fuel filter itself, and it's being the wrong one because the thread size is different, so that's something to note yourself. And it may be just looking at the size of the pipes and the orientation being on the opposite side will give that away. And we've also looked, if we go back to the car itself, we've looked at the other issue we know on this car, which is this leak off valve. Now I have a new one of these on order, and we'll be removing it from this point here and replacing the whole union. They're very easy to remove. You just pull these clips backwards and then gently prise up the leak off valve. So we'll also be of course cleaning all of this crud from the back here. You can see sat round where the ECU was, all of the damp mess and water, and we'll be looking to see if we can unblock all of these, because these are where the water's supposed to drain out, and they're completely blocked, as you can see on this car, completely blocked. And this is where water is supposed to drain away. So there's no surprise to me that we have this issue. Let's go ahead, get the ECU over to Blue Hawk Electronics, and let's get a new fuel filter. And here we have the new fuel filter. The new fuel filter is made by Blueprint, and the part number is there for you to see in the video should you wish to order this particular part. And when we pick up the fuel filter, we can see that it has the correct size pipes on the correct side, so the larger pipe on the right and the thinner one on the left, as we look at the video here. And as we look at the bottom of the fuel filter, we can see we have this white thing. Now some fuel filters will keep that and some will not. Depends on your particular car. If you have the pressure sender, then you'll need to unscrew this and fit your pressure sender with the new seal in place of it. So I'll just go ahead and remove that, and we'll be placing that to the side and picking up the pressure sender with the new seal on it, and we'll place the pressure sender in the bottom, and we screw this clockwise to tighten it up. Now it's important we do not over tighten this. We don't want to actually crack the pressure sender, so we just need to nip this up hand tight. No extra pressure required. And there we go. I now need to remove the two red blanking caps at the top. We can just twist those and they'll remove easily. And we now need to remove the blue tabs which we've fitted to the new fuel filter, which we're not using. So we need to remove those from that unit and fit them to the new unit, which we will be using here, the Blueprint fuel filter. I have removed the blue tabs from the new old old, new, whichever way you look at it, filter. And we're going to now place those onto the correct new filter. And to do that, we just collect the correct size tab for the pipe we're using, and we just gently press it over the pipe, and we'll hear a little click as it goes on. So that's one on. And of course, because I'm doing a voiceover video here, you won't actually hear that click, but you will hear a click as it just goes over that raised area. So let's go ahead now and get the second. No, let's not get the second tab because I've dropped it. Be careful not to tread on it. Let's pick it up and let's have a go at actually fitting that to the fuel filter as well. So we'll just gently press it over the tap, and here we go. Click. That's it, and that's on as well. So this fuel filter is now ready to go back on the car. And it's worth just mentioning that this part at the top here is your bleed valve. It's a 12mm, and when we pressurize the system later, we'll just undo this a little bit, and you can put a pipe on there if you wish, and that will allow any air in the system just to bleed out as we prime the unit. Now let's go fit this back to the car. The first thing I want to do is take the electrical connector here, and we're going to fit that onto the bottom of the electrical connector on the bottom of the fuel pump, like so. Just a firm push, and this will clip over that, and that will hold that on. With the electrical connector now firmly in place, we can bring the fuel filter back into position, being careful not to trap any of these fuel pipes as we do. In fact, I think I'm going to actually fit those fuel pipes before I put the bracket on. So let's go ahead and gently press those fuel pipes back into position. Now it's very important when we do this to make sure that the blue tab that you can see sticking up here is in line with this bit here, so that when we press that over the blue little connector tab here, that will actually lock into that groove. So I'm just going to go ahead and push that one in, and then we'll pick the video up. Okay, I've just lined those up, not quite finished pushing them in. So you see the blue tang there is just waiting to come through the hole. Give it a little push. We heard a click, and we can see now that's gone back in there nicely. And we'll do the same with this one. A little push. We heard a click, and that's connected nicely. So we now have both fuel lines and the electrical connector underneath connected. All we need to do now is put this bracket back in. So this bracket's going to go through this little hole here. There we go. It's going to wrap around, and we're going to put the bolt back in here, and then we're going to tighten it up. In order for this bracket to actually sit correctly on the fuel filter, we can see around this side we have this little metal bit here, and what we need to do is just put this, as you can see, so that that's in there, and that will hold it in its correct orientation. So that little metal bit sticking up just here, and then as we've done that, we can then come round to the bolt, and then we can hand tighten this, and then ultimately just nip that up with your 10mm socket and ratchet. And that completes the exchange fuel filter. Now the next thing to do is going to be to clean all of this horrible mess over here. And once we've done that, the next thing will be to come over here and remove these low pressure leak off valve return pipes. And to do that, all we're going to do is very carefully remove these clips, pulling them backwards with a screwdriver, and then prise up this very gently. And there will be a rubber seal, an O-ring seal on this, and we're going to do that on each one of these 4, and then we're going to gently remove it from here also, and then we'll await the new part tomorrow to fit it. And finally today, for this video, we're just going to take a look at the inside of the ECU that's been removed from this car. Thank you to Dennis from Blue Hawk Electronics for opening the unit while we brought it over so we could see. And these are the power transistors or drivers inside the unit. The unit itself actually powers high and low per injector, so there are 2 of these per injector. You can see as we look at these pictures, the water ingress into the unit has actually made quite a mess of the circuit board and some of the components. So Dennis really does have his job cut out to actually correct all of these issues and get this unit working. I have full faith in you, Dennis. Thank you very much for looking at the unit, and we look forward to replacing it on the car soon. A few final pictures of the main board, and we want to say again thank you for sticking with us during this video. There will be a follow-up video in the next few weeks showing the repaired ECU, the repaired leak-off valve and reassembly of the car. If you have enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up, and remember, if you haven't already subscribed, I hope I've earned the subscription whilst you've watched this video, so go ahead, please subscribe, share the video, tell all your friends about it. And a final little Easter egg for those that are interested at the end of the video. Having looked at the case, we have a detailed picture of the inside of a different ECU, labelling some of the main components. Now, for any of you tech people out there, this will be a great thing to screenshot and use for yourself going forward. Thank you again for watching the video, and I look forward to seeing you in the follow-up video very soon.